Estamos con Jules Hoffmann, biólogo franco-luxemburgués, profesor de la Universidad de Estrasburgo y Premio Nobel de Medicina 2011 por sus descubrimientos en la activación innata de la inmunidad. Muchas gracias por estar con nosotros hoy aquí. ¿Quién ha sido su mayor inspiración en el mundo de la ciencia?
Well, actually my father.
Wow.
My father was professor of zoology in Luxembourg, and so he took me, well, in the forests and in the meadows and so to see insects and all that, and I got interested in that. And then later on, Luxembourg, I was born in Luxembourg, and Luxembourg had no university at that time, so I had to go abroad. I chose France. I went to Strasbourg for my university studies, and then too quickly I got a position there. At that time, you could get positions very early on, and so I stayed in France, and I did my PhD in Strasbourg.
Entonces, la ciencia siempre ha estado presente en su familia, en su infancia y en su vida.
Well, to some extent, yes. My son also continues. Well, he's professor in Paris-Dauphine University in mathematics, and my daughter works at the hospital Bichat, also in Paris, and she's doing medical trials, you know, with new medicines to see how this works for patients.
En 2011 recibió el Premio Nobel de Medicina por descubrir nuevos receptores celulares responsables de la respuesta inmunológica innata que constituye la primera línea de defensa de nuestro organismo. ¿Qué papel jugaron los insectos en este descubrimiento?
We were working, I should explain this to you. Number one, to make things clear, the Nobel Prize in 2011, it's called Physiology or Medicine. I'm not a medical person.
Yeah.
And so it was shared between three people, myself working on flies, I'll explain to you why, another US scientist, Bruce Beutler, who's in Dallas now, he works on mice, and then a third person who works also on humans, Ralph Steinman from Rockefeller. And all this put together then explained to us why the animals in general recognize microbes, and in particular it was not known that animals reacted to microbes, but it was not known how they recognized the microbes and what sort of thing happened as an answer to the recognition. So it was a whole area, you see, and in this area, well, our role was judged by the Nobel Committee to have been essential. You must know that flies, Drosophila, have a very short life span, 15 days, from the time on that the mother lays an egg until the daughter can lay eggs. It's only 2 weeks. So you can raise them very easily, massively, you see. Mice, it's months or years. Humans, it's too long. Now, on the other hand, thanks to the molecular biology, those techniques, we know that most of the human diseases are caused by misfortunes in genes which encode molecules which are present also in the fly. So the fly produces, that we knew during our work, produces similar molecules to those which humans produce, antimicrobial peptides. So it was I think it was a very good choice. You can do transgenic flies without any opposition of the community, massively, quickly, and there's no problem if they die or do not die, you see. So if you want to see if a technique is positive, you can do it on hundreds of flies, and if 50% die, no one cries. That you cannot do it in mice anymore, and of course you cannot do it in humans. So it's a wonderful model to explore rapidly on a molecular level the aspects which defend a fly against microbes, bacteria, fungi, viruses.
¿Qué ha supuesto para el mundo de la medicina y para el mundo de la investigación? ¿Qué supuso ese descubrimiento?
The discovery was, we found the whole sequence from the recognition, which tells the musca that there is a microbe coming on, and also in addition that it knows it's a bacteria, it's not a fungus, it's not a virus. All that has been discovered then during those works. And from there to the molecule which blocks the development of the microbe, which are, as I mentioned already, antimicrobial peptides. So there was a whole sequence of gene products, sequence of something like 20 steps in the sequence, and that was discovered in those.
Entonces entiendo que esto fue clave para el desarrollo posterior de las vacunas y de sistemas para la inmunidad de los humanos.
No, that is saying too much. I mean, vaccines had been discovered earlier, but they didn't know exactly how they worked. But of course, establishing the sequence from recognition to the active medication or active peptide, that was new. And I want to insist, it's not for modesty, but many people were working on this. And you know, for the Nobel Prize, you are not a candidate. It's a Nobel Committee which decides who will get the prize.
La pandemia ha cambiado la forma en la que vemos las enfermedades. ¿Cree que estamos preparados para nuevas pandemias? ¿La humanidad está preparada para ello?
Yes, I'm convinced that we have learned, the community, not myself,
yeah.
We have learned a lot about how to react quickly to zoonosis. It's a zoonosis, you see, it goes from animals to humans, and yes, so much has been learned over those years that I'm sure it will be much more rapid. And but that doesn't help. There's still so many people who don't believe in vaccines.
Yeah.
And so, what can we do?
Precisamente esa es una pregunta que tenía para usted, porque ha dicho en ocasiones que el mayor riesgo de las vacunas es no ponerlas cuando hace falta.
Yes, yes, absolutely, absolutely, yes. No, I mean, you have occasionally, very rarely, there is a problem for one person with vaccines, but often it is due to the person who has other health problems, you see. She's fragile, that person, or he's fragile, that person. And so, but globally, nowadays I think vaccines are really the ideal system, but you have to insist, there are not enough vaccines. I mean, not enough quantity, but many bacteria, we have no vaccines against this bacteria. And so there's still a lot of work to do, and for reasons which probably relate to the fact that the animal or the human does not really recognize the identity, the cover of the virus or the bacteria, and so on, and so doesn't mount a real good immune response. That exists, and that's the problem.
Y aún así hay gente, hay tendencias y hay corrientes que están en contra de las vacunas. ¿Por qué cree que pasa esto? ¿Nos falta educación en ciencia?
It's just a matter of education. You have to explain to people how it works. There's nothing mystical, no mystery about vaccination. It's very clear, and now we understand very precisely, or in most cases, how it goes. And so then you have the results. I mean, in the US, the guess is that 1.5 million of people got their lives saved by the vaccine. And of course, there are those who could not get it, and then there are those who didn't want it. Even, you know, Kennedy Jr. in the US he's a candidate for the elections now, and he is fighting against, and he should be an intelligent man, he's fighting against vaccination. So it's not an isolated point.
¿En qué está trabajando ahora mismo la ciencia, la investigación en el tema vacunas? ¿Hacia dónde va la tendencia en la investigación de aquí en un futuro más inmediato?
Yes, well, the main focus, what has been discovered over the last 20 years, I would say, that immunology does not only fight microbes, but also plays a big role in fighting cancer. And that was not, I mean, I would not have guessed it 30 years ago. We didn't think about that. And now it is clear, very clear, that, for instance, even the substances which we discovered in the fly in fighting infections are also partially used to fight cancer. And that's now that is one of the important aspects that the immune system helps to fight everything which is abnormal in the blood, abnormal metabolites and abnormal cancer cells and abnormal development also. So it is much larger than it used to be.
Precisamente habla de enfermedades como el cáncer y cada vez se oyen más noticias, publicaciones de posibles vacunas contra el cáncer. ¿Cómo está la investigación en este tema y cómo lo ve para los próximos años?
For the time being, I believe not many vaccines against cancer cells have been developed. But let me explain to you what is the problem here. A cancer cell has abnormal protein. The immune system can recognize the difference and tell that cell is not normal. And then specialized cells, lymphocytes, T lymphocytes, which are called killer lymphocytes, they can attack. And when they attack, they can kill the cancer cells. But now the problem is that cells can produce, let me say, ligands is too complicated. They can produce weapons so that the lymphocytes do not kill them altogether. And for that, now scientists, Honjo, for instance, in Japan, and Allison in the US, they got the Nobel Prize for what is called the checkpoint inhibitor. So that tells the T cell to continue killing cancer cells. That is a new development, very important. And so that's not a vaccine.
Yeah.
And no, but vaccines are based on the idea that you can use cells, cancer cells, and extract abnormal molecules, abnormal proteins, and then vaccinate. Then you can vaccinate against those proteins, and you can hope that then you will have eradication of the cancer cells. That's the direction which is going. And I would be careful, say, science is not there yet, but it is something which is very, very strongly thought in the mind of the medical people to have a system which allows to vaccinate against cancer.
Se dice que en los últimos 20 años la medicina ha evolucionado más que en los últimos 20 siglos. ¿Van a ser así los siguientes 20 años? ¿Va a seguir a este ritmo de evolución el mundo de la medicina y de la investigación y de la ciencia?
Let us be precise here. Yes, I agree that the 18th century was a century of physics. The 19th century was a century of chemistry, and the 20th century was of biology. That's, to some extent, that's true. That's what people always say. Now, we have to say the really break in the evolution was when the DNA was sequenced. When that was sequenced, and that was the Nobel Prize was for Watson and Crick and Wilkins. At that time, so once the sequence was known, how it worked, then people could do enormous things. Cut genes, implant new genes, to transgenesis, and all that. That became possible, let me say, around 1970, 1980. Those were the great years following the discovery of DNA, the structure of DNA. And then, from there on, many things became possible, which were not possible before. And so now the techniques have evolved. The techniques have evolved so fantastically that now enormous possibilities are open to science, not only in medicine but also in agriculture and in in psychology, everything which you wish. And that will continue now. And now with artificial intelligence, it will go much quicker. Now, to keep everyone happy, we need wars. We need Ukraine, we need Gaza and all that to put people down again, you see. Yeah. Because medicine and science is going so quickly that people get scared and then they... It's sad, everything could be so much better now, but politics is...
Estamos en el marco de los premios Jaume I. ¿Qué supone ser jurado de unos premios como estos y qué importancia cree que tienen para el mundo de la investigación?
Yes. Let me say one first point. I've been on the prize committee, I think, for 10 years now, approximately. I see that in the applications, the nominations, there's an enormous progress in quality. Now we have very good nominations, much better, or globally speaking. We have in our committee, we have 30 nominations, and they are much better than they were 10 years ago. So there's a big progress, and big progress in the science in Spain, for sure. That is one point. And then the fact that people are competing for very good publications, for very good work, is a stimulus. And I think this whole story has a very positive impact on Spanish science. I admire it.
¿Cómo ve el mundo de la ciencia y de la investigación en España?
I would say it is progressing very rapidly. So it's very difficult to say Germany, France, England, but to compare, that's difficult. Because one problem is, of course, that money, you need money. And in the United States, they have put a lot of money there. Specifically, and that people forget, because of the foundations. I mean, you know, in the United States, if you are very rich, billionaire, and you give money for science, you can make a deduction of 60% from your taxes. And that has been a very strong incentive. And that does not exist in the same proportion, not yet, but it's coming in France, coming in Germany, coming in Great Britain, it exists. So, I would say, to summarize and to be clear, Spain has suffered, of course, historically, during the 20th century from the Civil War, and then after that from poor scientific management. But in the last 30 years it is progressing, and now rapidly. And I can feel it. You see, when I come to these meetings, I can feel it. And so it's, I think it is rapidly going to be as strong as France. And France is also progressing, but not as quickly as it could because of financial problems.
Yeah.